Welcome back to Torah on Tap. Tonight's class is dedicated for the full refuah shlema for Nisim ben Sela. Should have a fuah tanefesh refuah teguf sooner than later. Okay, we are on our last leg of manifesting our dreams. This is class number 8. Bezrat Hashem, we're going to bury this topic. It'll be stored somewhere in cyberspace. You'll be able to go back and find all of the source sheets and all the videos. The truth is that there were supposed to be 9 classes, and I'm going to try to, as they say, fit it all in this class. So I'm going to go fast. I go fast, but tonight we're going to go super fast. In a nutshell, what we've been saying up until now is that yes, it is possible for you, if you're able to tune into the right frequency of things, you can tune into the frequency of the universe and you can manifest your reality. And what I did was, the first few weeks brought down sources so that where we see this in Judaism and how it expresses itself. And I gave some practical tools and tips about how we could begin to think about our manifesting. And the one idea that I said throughout this mini-series, is that manifesting ultimately is about creating a vessel that is able to receive. And all the classes were about what we can do to help kind of create a vessel that is able to receive all the infinite good that God wants to create. I had my brother actually remind me of this. He said to me that, the one thing that people don't realize, that even a sinner is able to stand in God's good grace. Even someone who does the worst things in the world is still a child of God. And even that person, God has a deep desire to give anything and everything to. All the more so for someone who is a refined, good human being, someone who is working on themselves, someone who is trying to create a greater, better version of themselves. That person is even higher esteem and more likely to get the things that they want from the universe. But if we allow ourselves to live in a negative plane, if we allow ourselves to live in a space where we are very myopic, where we live in a constricted view of the universe, unfortunately God is unable to bestow His awesomeness onto us. There's a concept in the Gemara that says, Kol Yisrael arev ze leze, that every single Jewish person is interwoven with one another. What does that mean? How are all Jews interwoven with one another? Does that mean that I have some kind of connection to you? You're here tonight. We believe that on a deep cosmic level, each one of us are somehow intertangled to one another. And what I want to do tonight is, this first part is going to be very scientific. So I spent a lot of time researching it. Thank God for Grok 3 that has access to all these different articles for me. And so some of it is summarized from there, but I think overall it makes the point even stronger. Okay, this idea is based on Tomer Devorah. It says, Kol Yisrael arev ze leze. What does he say? He says all of Israel is responsible for one another, is commonly understood as a mutual responsibility among Jews. However, the Hebrew word arevim also means blended or intermixed. Every Jewish soul contains within it a portion of every other Jewish soul. This means that all of Israel is spiritually interconnected. Now, this idea comes from the Shlah HaKodesh. And he says as follows. He says that when Adam was created, before he ate from the Eitz Hadat, Tov Hara, before he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he encompassed within him every single soul that ever exists. And had he just gone straight from, the commandment of not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, straight to eating from the tree of life, which he was commanded to actually eat from, and he did not, at that point in time, history would have began and ended, and there would have been a full tikkun on all the neshamot within Adam. But because Adam ate from that tree of knowledge of good and evil, every single soul shattered into trillions and billions of pieces, creating a reality that you and I find ourselves in. Now, these souls often come to the world in clusters. So for example, the souls that are described that lived during the generation of Moses were the souls that made up Adam's neck. The generation that represented the connection, the bridge between the higher aspects of the faculties and the lower faculties. And then every generation going down and all the way down to the bottom. Our generation, we're the feet or the toes, the bottom of the barrel. Okay, but we're all interconnected. We're all somehow cosmically related. Now, the Siddur we say as follows. We pray, if you're familiar with your prayer, and if you're not, now's a great time to be engaging in reconnecting to prayer service. I was just listening to, I forgot his first name, Orlov, the guy that he just did he's a hostage that was freed, a Russian guy who he just did a Meaningful Minute podcast. I listened to it a couple of days ago. It was unbelievable. If you have not listened to any of the testimony of the hostages or any of their interviews, that is a huge disservice to yourselves. They're super inspiring, so powerful. I mean, just to even hear a young guy talk about how he made Aliyah from St. Petersburg 6 months before October 7th, looking for a job, and he was a security guard at the Nova Festival, setting himself up. His mom is in Russia, and he's here alone in Israel doing ulpan and trying to fit in. He was a guard that wasn't allowed to have a gun. Just a bigger guy that just helped weed out people that were trying to get in, and talking about what it was like watching the rockets come in and the festival being shut down, and then seeing these insurgents and the horrors. And for me, I think the most, all of it is powerful and meaningful, but for me, one of the most meaningful things that he said was how, he never really saw himself as being a very spiritual person, but the one thing that he learned in captivity, I think it was 480 days or 487 days in Gaza, was he learned how to speak to God. And I think it's beautiful, and it's also sad at the same time. It's beautiful that every single hostage is coming out and talking about their connection to God and this powerful, profound feeling they have of being connected to this higher power and higher source. And here we are with all the freedoms in the world to do whatever we want, and we feel so disconnected. Do we want to be the individuals whose freedoms were robbed to create a space where we can connect to the infinite creator of the universe? Or do you want to be the individuals who are able to exercise free will, the freedom to do whatever you want, and put some time in every single day, a daily activity of connecting to something more than the self? Right? That's what this is. The idea of manifesting is recognizing, again, that there's this infinite creator that truly wants to give you everything. That's stage one. Are you able to receive everything? No. Well, what are we doing to allow ourselves to become individuals that are able to receive all these things? Part of it is the recognition of our challenges, the recognition of the circumstance that we find ourselves in. It's not an accident that you have your problems and I have my problems. Not an accident that those are the people that raised you. Not an accident that those are your siblings. Not an accident that that's your boss or whatever it is. It's all part and parcel of your unique story. Lean into it and allow yourself to grow into something more. But be mindful that we are all interconnected. And there's a story that is told by Rabbi Yosef Karo, a famous rabbi who wrote the Shulchan Aruch. And he was struggling to understand a particular piece of esoteric works in Gemara. And he locked himself in the synagogue for 3 days, and he's trying to figure it out back and forth. He did not leave. He comes out, he's like, I finally get it. And he's so excited, he wants to come out, he wants to share it with his teacher, and he's on his way to his teacher's house. He hears two guys in a synagogue, the window's open, and they're discussing exactly the area of Talmud that he was struggling in. And the guy asks the question that he was stuck on for 3 days. And the guy he was learning with gives him an answer that he spent 3 days locked up in this room trying to figure out. And he was so depressed that this guy went ahead, and he's a simple guy, a simple businessman, is going ahead and giving an answer that he had spent 3 days meditating on. So how does that happen? By the way, you can see this historically. There are times in history where we could see, because of their journals, different individuals on different parts of the planet having exactly the same ideas around in the same year, different places, in America and in Europe and in Asia. People in their diaries talking about deep concepts, not connected, but somehow are all tethered into this one stream of thought. We don't see it because we're so far away, but historically we have evidence of these things popping up and appearing in. And the Baal Shem Tov actually explains this. He says that, imagine for a moment, he gives this mashal. He says there's a king who sees this gorgeous bird, and it's perched up in this really high place, and no one can reach it. No matter what they do, they can't bring the bird down. So what happens? The king says, we're going to make a giant human pyramid. You ever go to those sorority things? Anyway, so they all get on top of each other, right? And they're piling on top of each other. And then the guy on the top is able to reach the bird and brings it down. And when they bring it down, now every single person has access to the unique, beautiful feathers or the eggs of this particular bird. And this is the same idea, that when we're able to pull down concepts from a higher plane, from a spiritual plane into a physical plane, every single person has access to it right away. This is why it's so important to patent your ideas immediately, because if you're thinking about it, be mindful that someone else is thinking exactly the same thing someplace else. Yes. So, we say, in the brachot, we say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, right? This is what the first blessing of Na'amidah. And the question I'm sure you've heard is, why mention all three? I'm right there at number 3 on the first page. Why mention the names of all three rabbis? Just say, 3 rabbis, 3 avot. Just mention the Elokei Avot. 2 words. The God of our fathers, the God of the patriarchs. I have to go ahead and mention the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Why? Because each one represents something that they brought down into the world. Kindness, justice, balance. Right? And therefore we're recognizing that they were the ones that had to open up the keys, so it gave us the keys to access these different lanes. And then when you're actually praying, you should be thinking deeply about, well, which one of these 3 areas do you naturally fall into? How are you working on that? Because the ultimate goal is balance. Any one extreme and any one midah is bad. Right? The goal in life is balance. Right? Anyway, so you have this concept of the morphic resonance. Okay, this is how thought, behavior influence the collective. Okay, this is the basic idea. This is actually, you could Google this stuff. It is fascinating. I'm just like, I love this stuff. Anyway, so this is based on the theory of morphogenic fields by Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. And he says as follows: deeper understanding of human consciousness is interconnected. Even on a thought level, we explore the theory of morphogenic fields as developed by Dr. Sheldrake. And this is what he says. He's a biologist. He did a whole bunch of experiments. It turns out that our thoughts are connected in a much deeper way than you and I can possibly imagine. He says as follows: he was puzzled by how living organisms form and develop, right? God bless you and your family. The conventional science attribute cellular organization, DNA. There remains the question: what directs an unformed, homogeneous cell to become a heart cell? What tells a pre-lung cell where to go and how to act? The cells that make up your eyes are exactly the same cells that make up the hair on your head. The difference between your eyes and your hair is that your eyes allow light to go in, and your hair, okay, the cells in your hair, basically all they do is the same cells in your eyes, instead of being open like this, they fold to block out the light. Well, how does it know how to do that? How do the cells on a very small DNA level have that type of wisdom and understanding? These are the other questions regarding regulations and regeneration of living organisms. Led him to propose the theory of morphic resonance, a form of species-wide communication that extend beyond individual genetics. And then basically, in a nutshell, this whole entire page is a page that you could turn the page over to page the other side over there. Okay, all these ideas is basically proofs that we are all interconnected. You could read it on your own. I don't want to go through all of it. There are different fields, our thoughts, actions influence the collective consciousness. They did several studies like this. For example, we'll see it again a little bit later. They took a series of mice, okay, and they put them in a maze where they like a swim through water, and they basically found that 2 different groups, different rooms, okay. One group was able to do the maze faster and faster and faster. Their children, they got it right away in the first try. It's as if they were able to pass down the information genetically. Now, what was so fascinating is that the mice in the other room that had no connection to the other mice, also, in one generation, they figured it out right away. Like, also on a cosmic level, maybe on a quantum level, the information passed down to them as well. We see this with monkeys learning new skills. Like once they took monkeys, they put them on they had 2 islands. One of them, they had a certain fruit. They had to wash it and then use like a stick to crack it open. The group of monkeys on the other island could not see the other monkeys, and somehow when one group had it, the other group figured it out right away. Some kind of interconnected thing happening. How is it happening? There are studies that prove that when a woman is nursing her child, right, she will feel her milk come forward even before the child is about to cry. There's a connection there, right? She doesn't hear the child screaming. Everyone thinks that the child screaming is what activates the milk. No, there's some other thing happening that we can't begin to explain. On a subconscious level, there's some kind of interconnectedness. Kol Yisrael, Arevim Zeh Lezeh, we're all interconnected. This is true on a global level also. The Shemesh Shmuel, I'm in the middle of that third page. where he says the mitzvah of Sukkah serves as protection against the negative thoughts and influence of the nations. The reason why you sit in the Sukkah is because the whole entire world has all kinds of interesting thoughts, and therefore their thoughts, if we're all interconnected, impact us. Right? Not an accident. Well, we see what happened after October 7th. Right? How easy was it? I don't know about you, but for me, I definitely got some crazy thoughts that I never ever had. Like I wanted to do things to the people of Gaza or Hamas that I was just, I don't even know where those feelings, I don't even know where those thoughts came from. But when one group of people brings down a particular type of behavior into the world, it impacts the whole of the planet. Okay, I have a lot to say on that, but we're not going to go there. Quoting the Zohar, he says the degraded thoughts of the nations are compared to floodwaters that seek to penetrate and influence the minds of Israel, and therefore the Sukkah itself is a form of protection. Even though Israel emerged victorious from the judgment of Yom Kippur, they are still pursued by external influences. Ideas, ideologies that attempt to infiltrate and divert their spiritual focus. These influences seek to shift Israel's intentions away from holiness, encourage them to invest in material pleasures rather than pursuing guidelines. Therefore, the Sukkah itself is like the Ark of Noah. Okay? How do we do that? We do that by trying to separate ourselves from external noise and refocus onto godliness. Turn the page. Top of the page says, immerse is an environment of holiness, shielding minds and souls from distraction, reinforce our spiritual identity, safeguarding it from the overwhelming thought currents of the world. The Sukkah is not just a physical dwelling, but is a spiritual refuge, protecting Israel's purity, thought, and devotion to God. That is the Sukkah, not just a place where you sit there, the Sukkah David HaNofelet, not just the beautiful Sukkah that we stay in because of the just thinking about the Shekhinah itself, but also a place where it's like I love Superman. It's like our fortress of solitude. Everyone know what that is?
Reference.
Thank you. One guy, of course. All right. Anyway, right? Okay, two guys. Okay, fine. There you go. So none of the girls watch Superman. What? Okay, fine. Okay, Supergirl. Did she have a fortress of solitude? I don't know. I never watched that. All right, fine. All right. So number 5. Okay, Kobayashi Ke Oshihima. Okay, says as follows: the critical mass effect. Okay, some ideas like products catch on fast, spreading like wildfire until everyone wants it, driven by influences, sales, tactics, and even unseen forces. Morphic resonance. This shows us how influence can hit tipping point and take over. Meditation impacts communities. A study in high crime U.S. areas found that groups meditating on peace, quietly focusing in apartments, right, coincided with fewer violent crimes nearby. Could collective calm really spread to a whole neighborhood? This is what this article was talking about. Side note: meditation used in the big Judaism dropped off 150 years ago. Right? What if it came back? Meaning, like, it used to be that the world was a more sane place, but since the Industrial Revolution, meditation stopped. Simply because we had no time to meditate anymore. The Gemara says that when we would go pray in the morning, the nature of every single Jewish person, this is what we would do: wake up really early in the morning. You spend 1 hour preparing for your meditation, breathing, stretching, all kinds of interesting yoga poses, all the alphabet, right? Then you spend 1 hour praying, actually meditating. And that experience was so profound that you needed 1 more hour to come down from the spiritual high that you were on. 3 hours in the morning, just so that you could go ahead and connect to something much bigger, greater than yourself. We don't have time for that anymore, right? Maybe that's why the world is so broken. Okay, fine. So you see that there are people that were sitting there and meditating on peace. Just the idea of peace alone. They did the same study by similar studies later on. I did this in 2003 at Columbia University. They did a study of prayer groups where they took 60 people that were broken up into 2 groups, 30 and 30. And one group was praying for a bunch of people that were sick, okay? And they were aware that they were being prayed for. And another group was sick and was not aware that they were being prayed for, but they were being prayed for. Meaning the prayer people were praying for the people, and the people that were sick were unaware of the fact that they were being prayed for. Both groups got significantly better, okay? As a matter of fact, the difference as far as how much faster they got better versus other people that were not being prayed for, something like 35% more faster in terms of healing and getting better. And it didn't matter if they were aware of it or unaware of it. It didn't matter if they were aware that they were being prayed for or not. They both had exactly the same results. So there's something there that we're somehow connected in this amazing world, and how somehow our ability to go ahead and think about somebody else brings down this amazing power of all kinds of things to the world itself. Okay, number 6, 1974, you have a biophysicist demonstrated that junk DNA, previously thought to have no function, is actually the primary source of ultra weak light emission, known as biophotons. They did this actually fascinating study a few years ago, where they looked at a sperm cell, okay, right before an egg is, what's the word I'm looking for? Shoots. Fertilized. Thank you. Is that what you said? Thank you. Yeah, fertilized. I didn't hear you, but okay. We see, you were already thinking of it, and it came to my mind. Okay, fine. Fertilized, right? There is a right as it gets fertilized, there's a flash of light that happens. It's noticeable.
Isn't that the spirit coming in?
So they could say it's an oxide that like a reaction that happens. We have no idea what these things are. Some people say it's the soul entering the egg. I don't know what it is, right? But there's something happening. Okay, please come in, make yourselves comfortable. Okay. So he says as follows. He says in 1926 Russian. He said Alexander Gurevich. He first discovered that cells in living organisms emit light. He named these emissions mitogenic rays. In 1974, German researcher, Nobel Prize winner Fritz Albert Popp reconfirmed the light emissions from radiological systems and renamed them biophotons. Popp's research verified that all living organisms, including human cells and DNA, transmit light and information at a subatomic level. We know now from a quantum entanglement. Does everyone here know what quantum entanglement is? We talk about quantum computers, quantum chips. Okay, quantum computers and quantum chips, basically in a nutshell, imagine you have two cells, they all share an electron, okay? And when we go ahead and we figure out a way of entangling these two particles with one another, they're able to transmit information from one to the other instantaneously, regardless of how far apart they are from each other. We're not talking about a cable that is bringing your internet from the servers to your house. I'm talking about on a molecular level. Once we entangle two molecules with one another, there's a quantum entanglement. And if I could put information in one, the other one will have it at exactly the same time.
It's like quantum leap, but they talk about it like with getting yourself to a different level when you're manifesting.
Correct. It is like that also. I'm just pointing out from a scientific place that there is this idea that there are thoughts, concepts that are somehow interconnected without us actually having an awareness of it. There's no measuring it. It's just there. It's just happening. All right, look at the middle of that page over there. A spiritual connection. He says that research aligned with Jewish teachings, the soul radiates spiritual light through thought, speech, and actions. Human heart is the seat of emotions and connection, influencing not only your personal, but also those around us. Just as the Torah describes the face of Moses was glowing with divine light, so too over here, we are all emitting light. As a matter of fact, we know that on Saturday night, when we're doing Havdalah, right, there's a custom, right, where you do the Borei Moraesh, you take your hands and you put it out to the candle and you do this. Right? Why do you do this? Right? You do this because you want to be able to see the candlelight reflect off the nails, and you also want to see the shadow of darkness in your palms. You want to see that Mavia ben Kodesh Lachol. You want to see the difference between light and darkness. Shabbat is the light, the oncoming week is the darkness in your palm. But also, beyond all of that, you also want to know and you want to remember that before Adam sinned, he was like a nail. Now, I used to think that means he was like really rigid and like he was wearing like a shield of armor, but really he was a translucent being. And that when we were looking at Adam before his sin, you would see his core, you would see his soul light up, and that person, those two people, Adam and Eve, were the first individuals who were able to actually see one another, and ever since then, no one could actually see the other person. All we see is a reflection of light. You don't actually see the essence of what I am. I can't see the essence of what you are. all I see is the light in the room bouncing off your face that allows the receptors in my eyes to carry the message to my brain to create an image that I see in front of me. That I see upside down, that the brain flips right side up, and I only see parts of it, and so on and so forth. It's all filtered. I don't see the truth. But there was a time when we saw the truth, and that was symbolic of this on Saturday night. All right, inner and outer elements, the creation based on teachings of the Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag. So he says as follows. He says that the Jewish people are the inner circle, while the nations of the world are the outer element. Within the Jewish people, there is an inner and outer element. The inner are those that align themselves with Torah, which is the blueprint of creation. The outer are those who did not live in alignment with Torah. Now, I know, like, I'm the rabbi, and here he goes, preaching about the Torah stuff, right? I wasn't always a rabbi, A. B is that it's true that when we talk about the idea of Torah, it's mostly misunderstood. Most of the time when we think about the word Torah, we're thinking about like mishpatim, we're thinking about the laws, right? And this is misunderstood. I want to explain to you what it is, right? In a nutshell, the word Torah comes from the word, in Hebrew, hora'ah. What does the word hora'ah mean? Instruction. What is an instruction? We call it Torat Chaim, instruction manual for life. There was a great book written many moons ago called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, right? What's the book about? Anyone know? No one read it? All right. In a nutshell, what? Okay, so we're going to get that. So the book is really about understanding that since you and I have consciousness, we could think. Since you and I have the ability to ask really great questions, okay, must be that we're here to figure out what the meaning of life is. But how could we actually come to the answer what the meaning of life is if we don't know which questions to ask? So a big chunk of the story is a guy going through his adventures, meeting different individuals who are helping him come up with the questions. And when he finally gets the questions, he actually eventually finds the answer. And the answer to the meaning of life is 42. And most people don't really understand what 42 is. But I'm going to help you understand it. I'm going to crack the code for you right now. Do you know what it is? Okay, what's 42 times 10? Do you understand now? Some of you do, some of you don't. Okay. That is a conclusion that they came to in that book. 420, right? Anyway, it's fine. So, but for Jews, we don't believe that it's just 420, right? April 20th. We believe that it's something more than that. No, it's not April 20th, it's 420, right? So we believe it's something much more than that. What is it? What is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is that you are here with purpose. That we live in a world with meaning. That sometimes when we see things we can't understand, it's part and parcel of some much bigger, greater plan. I'm not in control of the world that I live in. I have a really close friend who I speak about all the time. He was my best friend growing up. He's Chinese. His name is Frederick Tang. And Fred actually reached out to me on Motzei Shabbat. He's panicking a little bit. He's like, aren't you worried about Donald Trump and Elon Musk destroying the government? I'm like, nope. So he starts like listing all the things that he's bugging out on. Like he just fired people, this and that, people losing their jobs. He's like totally going crazy, like freaking out. I'm like, what is I'm like everything you just wrote to me, and I wish I could read it. It's on my phone because it's so funny. I'm like, it's all theoretical. Nothing is real. He's like, no, you have to watch this guy. And he sends me like a link. Some guy named John Oliver. I'm like, oh, this guy. I'm like, he's like a liberal, left-wing, progressive, like Democratic Party, like talking point guy. Like you can't hear anything this guy says. I'm like, yeah, it's true. He says some things that are true, but a lot of it's garbage. So he's like, what do we do? They're going to destroy the country. I'm like, I believe in the resilience of the American people and the Constitution. That nothing will be destroyed. If he messes it up, it's possible that he will, because he's not God. Certainly they could both all mess it up, but I believe in the resilience of our people, and if we messed up, we'll figure it out, we'll fix it. So he's like, well, I'm panicking. I'm like, fear is evil, right? Fear is not danger. Danger is real. Fear is your body playing tricks on you. Fear is an opportunity to grow. Danger, you gotta protect yourself, get into a bomb shelter, go do something. But fear is not real. So I said to him, the only thing that you and I can do right now, because I can't control, I'm like, what do you propose? What do you want to do? How do you want to solve this? So he's like, I don't know. I'm like, let me tell you what to do. I can't control what's happening in the world. It's beyond me. So what can I control? What can you control? What's the one thing that all of you can control?
Yourself.
Your thoughts and yourselves. That's it. I can't even control the people that gave birth to me. right? I have no control over the community I was born in. I have no control of the time, the area, the socioeconomic, philosophical, educational circumstances that describes my reality. Those things are God-given. I don't choose those things. The only thing that I can choose is how I am going to respond to those things. And that's in my purview, that's in my control. Everything else, I'm not interested in. What's going to be my response? I was broken on Thursday, watching everything that happened unfold with the Bibas family. I was horrible. And my blood boils, and I'm ready to get on a plane and just go like commando, That's just like, And then I realized, I'm like, you're going crazy for no reason because like that's not in your control. Like, what's in your control? What are you going to do about it? So when we talk about the idea of like Torah, the Torah says, align yourselves with Torah, all we're asking is for you to align your free will to a place where you can choose to respond in the circumstance that you find yourselves in right now in the most powerfully profound way possible. That's it. That's what it is. If you're thinking about Torah as something that is measurable from a chitzoni place, from an external place, you're missing the point. That's not what it is. It's all pnimiyut. It's all the inner parts of who you are. It's about who you are as a person. It's who you are as a community member. It's who you are as a brother, as a sister, as a son or a daughter. That's what it's about at its core. And then you work outwards from there. But he says over here that there's this inner and outer element. And the inner are those people that align themselves with the Torah, which is the people that are developing and growing themselves. Remember, if it is not, how does it go again? If you're not measuring it, it can't be managed. If you're not measuring your growth, you can't manage your growth. If you're not writing out a very clear, step-by-step plan of how you're developing and growing, you're not going anywhere. You're going backwards in life. If it's not being measured, it can't be managed. So he says there's two groups. The inner group are the people that are measuring, right, and managing, and the outer group are the ones that are not, okay? These are the two groups. So you have, in effect, the inner group has an impact on the outer group, and the outer group has an impact on the inner group. We're all interconnected. Now, when you're aligning yourself with a particular group, does that have an impact on you? My grandfather used to say he had this, he didn't speak English well. He said, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you who you are." Right? You ever hear that expression? Right? And it's so true. Like you are so much of a reflection of the people that you choose to be around. Right? So now, well, why? Because their thoughts and their actions, they impact you. So the good news that you're in a room tonight with people that chose to be here tonight because they're looking for something meaningful to hold on to. They're looking for some sort of inspiration. They're looking for something profound to think about, right? So this is the inner group, right? The inner group of people influence each other, whether you like it or not. And when each one of you chooses to do something to elevate the individual, it has an impact on the collective. When one of you figure out how to upgrade the self and how to do something better, greater, more mindful, that impacts the whole of the entire group. That is the reverberation effect that impacts every single person in this room. All right, let's keep going. The mission of the Jewish people, right? I'm on this page that's on the bottom of the page says number 7, but I'm on top of this. The mission of the Jewish people. The Jewish mission is to serve as Or L'Goyim, a light unto the nations, a Mamlechet Kohanim, a kingdom of priests, demonstrating godliness in attitudes, actions, and influence. The spiritual DNA of the Jewish soul, infused at Mount Sinai, endows the Jewish people with the greatest potential responsibility. However, this potential must be actively cultivated. The greatest obstacle is before the mitzvot out of habit, without awareness or intention. That is the struggle of each one of us over here. And by the way, we are living in such fascinating times because we watched since October 7th how the world was just picking on Israel. Double standards. It's not fair. I got a phone call from a group at Con Edison. Anyone need help with their bills? Just please let me know. I get a class there a few times a year. So Con Edison has a group. There's like 20,000 employees at Con Edison, and about 2,000 of them are Jewish, and they're part of a community that Con Edison supports. They have a budget for it. They have like Jewish communal stuff. And they always tell me, if this was any other group in the world, watching what just happened on Thursday, There have been all kinds of sessions about sensitivity training, of being mindful and aware. Zero, zilch. No one says anything, no one cares. It's like, who cares? Did nothing happen? There's a double standard when it comes to the world sensitivities and our sensitivities. I think it was Kahana who said something like, I'd rather live in a world where all Jews are hated, right? Where all of Israel is hated, versus a world where all Jews are loved, but for being dead, like something like that, right? Like I'd rather be a guy who's alive and despised because I have a clear understanding of my moral principles, versus a world where I'm dead and everyone feels bad for the fact that the sorry Jew is dead, like post-Holocaust. I don't want your pity. I want to be clear and resolute about who I am, what I believe in, and be unapologetic about it. Especially when you know that every position that you take is on a moral level is way greater than anything around you. Israel, way higher moral ground than anything that the people in their neighborhood are throwing at them. And the world itself, they could go do you know what with themselves. Anyway, so the role of Kabbalah and Chassidut was, in the last 250 years, was designed to elevate, right, to bring Kabbalistic and Hasidic thought to the world. These concepts were designed to deepen our connection with Torah, infuse meaning into daily observance, elevate from rote action to spiritually transformative experiences. The more concentrated our focus, the closer we get to the spiritual tipping point, influencing Jewish collective to the world. The whole of the last 250 years was really a change. Up until now, there's actually two individuals, a guy from Brooklyn who went to Syria last week. This past week, he went to Syria to take a look at the community, and he's talking about bringing the Jews back to Syria. I'm like, this guy's loco. I don't think anyone's going back to Syria. It's over. That ship has sailed. The idea that we're gonna live in a peaceful coexistence, in a coexisting land with other people in that country is not happening. Why would you take the chances? Even though today, I'm not sure if you saw the news, but all the Bedouins in south of Syria have basically taken a pledge to create their own army, and they're going to side with Israel, right? We're supporting Israel. Now, and the reason why they're doing that is very simple. After they killed Nasrallah, right? They were super aggressive right after those Bedouin teenage boys were killed playing soccer on Saturday night when that missile from the Hezbollah hit them. And you know what I'm talking about? So Israel vowed to go ahead and take full revenge. They went in hardcore, and they did that because they understood that the Bedouins only serve the strongest master in the region. So once Israel flexed their strength muscle, they all fell in suit. And this is exactly what David HaMelech says. He says, Hashem oz la'amo yiten, Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom. Why does oz come first? Why does God bless us with strength? Hashem oz la'amo yiten, Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom. Shouldn't we first have peace? Well, you can't have peace without strength. This is peace through strength. This is where it comes from. That's King David. He says it's super clear. But the idea of the Kabbalistic idea and coming into the world was supposed to transform our experience. The way you and I practice our Judaism, the way you think about it, is radically different than any one of our ancestors before us. Okay. Let's look at number 7. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. He says as follows. He says, the ultimate spiritual refinement is to emulate God in all aspects of life, in thought, speech, action. Just as God attributes are pure, kind, and everlasting, so too, we align ourselves with divine qualities. This presents a profound challenge, okay? As follows. To rise above personal limitations and become part of the critical mass of individuals, introducing higher consciousness into the world. That's what you're here for. To commit to being more godlike, not only in belief and intention, but a daily interaction and behaviors. To speak words of kindness, to think thoughts of purity, to act with compassion and justice, mirroring the divine attributes. By embodying these godly traits, we actively participate in elevating the world, transforming both outer and those around us. Through this commitment, we fulfill the Torah's highest calling, and you shall walk in his ways. That's what we want. Now, what does the world look like? If I'm telling you there's already scientific evidence that my thoughts impact reality, okay, and I know that we live, in Israel next door to these psychopaths, okay, who are thinking about like the worst possible thoughts in the world. The only way to counterbalance that is what? I'm not saying we shouldn't be strong. I'm not saying we shouldn't have an army. I'm not saying we shouldn't go to war. You got to fight for what you believe in ultimately. But if we're just doing that and we're just an army without a soul, what are we fighting for? Like, Israel has to be more than just a land with a strong army. Our people have survived for 2,000 years. You're sitting in this room because you come from people that were survivors. 99% of the Jews that survived the destruction of the Second Temple do not have any descendants alive today. Do you know that? Only 1% of the people that lived 2,000 years ago have great-great-grandkids alive today. That's it. And you're part of that group of people. You and I. We're part of the 1% of the people that survived Jewish history. 99% are gone. The one common denominator that the ones that survived, that have gone up this far, that's gone us this far in time, is this one idea. They clung. I promise you, I can't prove it. I'll bet huge sums of money that if you're sitting in this room today, it's simply because it's a grandparent or a great-grandparent that was super deeply involved in refining their souls. And that the tool that they use is something called Torah. The tool they use is something called Tefillah. The tool that they use is something called Midot Tovot. Those were their tools. You're here because of their hard work. It wasn't easy. We're so lucky. We're so gifted. We have so much to be grateful for. They had nothing. No food in the pantry. No clothing in the closet. Nothing. No trinkets, no toys, no distractions. Focus. No air conditioning. No heat. Somehow, regardless of the circumstance they were in, they figured out a way of being involved in the most important part of life. Just like these hostages that are coming out telling us the stories about how, like, the only thing, I forgot that the father came out, he said, like, the only thing he wanted, came out on Thursday, he said, the only thing I want is a kippah on my head. I want to say Kiddush Friday night, I want to sing Zmirot. That's all I want. I want to bring light into a world of darkness. He's like, they took away my shalom. When we go out and have Shabbat, and it's Shabbat Shalom, we are bringing peace to the world. Do you understand that? He understands it. We don't understand it. He lives it. We don't live it. Okay, so there's something called the power of the collective practice. So we've been speaking about that. Aligning our will with the infinite. We are actually bringing God and that infinite idea into this world, and so on and so forth. I'm just moving a little bit faster, just turning the page with me again. Number 9. Okay? Okay, so how do we anchor these spiritual practices? Okay, what is anchoring? Anchoring is taking an idea and making it present. So anchors are stimuli that trigger thoughts, emotions, and memories. Okay, so a song from a childhood can be an anchor, a smell of a familiar dish, a psychological principle can be harnessed for spiritual growth. When I do my meditations, I like to end with an anchoring. I want you to imagine something positive, and I want you to I want you to take an idea that you want to accomplish, and I want you to anchor into something that you'll remember that will evoke that emotion immediately, whether it's a smell, a moment, a memory, a picture, whatever it is. Okay, this is what the number 10, the Maggid Medrash says you can do. Quoting the Baal Shem Tov, he says, using melody is one of the ways of divine service among the Hasidim. Melody touches the soul. By humming or playing personal uplifting tunes, one can elevate their spiritual consciousness. Emotions, your emotional state, is not a reality. It's a choice. You are feeling depressed, that's a choice. We even say it. Mishenichnas Adar, what do we say? How's that possible? Can you mandate happiness if I'm not feeling well? Like I should be like, if I'm sad, if someone passed away, I should just be happy? You can't tell me to be happy. I feel sad. And the answer is yes, you can. Emotions are there to help you navigate a scenario. They're not there to define the scenario. This is why it's so confusing when people are dating. When people are dating, what they end up doing is their emotional brain takes over, right? And they want their feelings to dictate the nature of this relationship. When in reality, the emotions are there so that you can eventually ignore them, right? And get yourself to a place where you could cerebrally ask yourselves, do these emotions align with my core values? Do these emotions align with who I want to be in my future, with how I want to raise my children, with the kind of community I want to be a part of? with my own personal goals in life? Because we never do that. We get stuck with the emotional part, we get stuck with all the chitzoni external parts, and we've seldomly spent any time really trying to internalize it in a way that's meaningful, and this is where we get into trouble with our relationships. Pain, suffering, and I'm telling you right now, this past 2 months, I've spoken about this before, the month of Tevet, Shvat, and Adar are the months where I get every single phone call you could possibly imagine about relationships. And I can't even tell you the things that I hear because you would blush. I blush. It's horrible stuff. You should never know that stuff. But it all comes from individuals that are. So I said this once. I think I shared this once before. One guy, his wife calls me and he's like, Rabbi, I was out with my friends, and we got into a fight. He's not talking to me. I said, well, why is he not talking to you? I said something. I'm like, what did you say? She's like, we were out Saturday night with a bunch of his friends, and I said, he likes to touch his phone more than he likes to touch me. I'm like, you said that out loud? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, he's upset with you. She's like, but it's true. I'm like, I know it's true. That's why you said it. But those are inside words, not outside words, right? So then I had to spend time helping her understand why she had to apologize. Because she's like, he deserves it. He's not there, whatever it is. I'm like, okay, great. So we're going to fix it, right? So I get them both on the phone, and she's like, yeah, I know, I should not have said it like that. She's like, I don't think you're remorseful. She's like, yeah, I'm not remorseful. I'm like, here we go again. Anyway, so, okay, fine. So people often get lost in their own emotions, and they don't really create real strategic places where they can be cerebral about their relationships, which is what the relationship demands. The same is true with our personal development. When we think about ourselves, how are we growing and developing the self? What are we doing to elevate the self? Or are we just waiting to feel good about the self? Singing is if you're feeling sad, you want to turn that frown upside down, turning on an awesome song will help. You don't have to wallow in misery. There's actually a fascinating machloket amongst the rabbis. When does the mazal of Adar start? Does it start on Rosh Chodesh? Because it's 2 days of Adar, right? So does it Lamed Shvat? So one says not Lamed Shvat, Aleph Adar it starts. Another says no. Ben Ish Chai says it starts when you make Hachrazah. So this past Shabbat, we made the announcement in the Knesset that these are the days of Rosh Chodesh Adar, and therefore it started with this past Shabbat. Now, I don't know about you. I'm a very wishful person. I want to manifest goodness. I want to manifest good things, and I have a feeling a lot of good things are going to happen very, very soon for all of us. Bezrat Hashem, soon. Right, and for our people, it's going to happen in this month, right? It's going to happen now, right? The month of Adar is a month of change. Venahapachu, we flip it all around. You're not stuck. The months are a reminder that just like the month changes, our mazal changes. Stop thinking that you're stuck. You're not stuck. It'll change. And the power of this month is that in this month, you have the ability of accessing the highest spheres of potential. All growth can only happen from a happy, positive state. You cannot grow when you're sad. You can't pull down shefa into the world when you're sad. You can't pull down bracha into the world when you're depressed. It only comes from a place of happiness. You can't grow. That's why in the winter months, it's all death. It's maintenance. The time of growth begins now. Right? And I think we're something like 40-something days away from Pesach. Right? Pesach, what are we celebrating? What? Freedom. Who here wants to be free? What? Everyone wants to be free. Right? What's the one thing that is holding you back from achieving true freedom? What is the freedom we're talking about? When we talk about freedom, what are we really talking about at the core? What kind of freedom? The freedom to be whatever you want to be. What? All of it. You are holding yourself back. It's your own thoughts, your fear, your own psychological self is holding yourself back. And therefore, if you want to experience the true freedom of Nisan, the miracle of life, the miracle of freedom, it could only happen with the simcha of Adar. You understand that? If you're depressed, you can't grow. You want to grow, you got to work on being happy. Right? Shlomo Karlbach, right? The famous singer. He says that songs are the power to evoke deep joy and connection. By associating specific melody with feeling and love and unity in the world of redemption, tap into that state of mind, find your song, anchor it into the world of prayer, and build yourself up into a place of simcha and happiness, and you'll see yourself growing. What kind of tefillah do we want? We want avodat shebalev. We want you to find one tefillah. It's too hard for you to pray, Rabbi. I don't believe it. I don't believe it's too hard for you to pray. If you tell me right now that it's too hard for you to pray, you know what I'll say back to you? You're a liar. Why? Because God forbid you found out that your best friend, a mother, a parent, God forbid, I'm not going to say what, I'm not going to fill in the blank, you fill it in with whatever, and they needed their prayers, I promise you'll find the words. Don't wait for circumstances to force you to open your heart. Don't wait for it. Now is the time. We're seeing this. Hello, we're living at the end of Jewish history. That I'm confident about. The world is changing again. You and I are going to see things that we could only begin to imagine. Right? Our ancestors couldn't even imagine the world we're going to live in. And it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult. And there's going to be two kinds of people. The people that survive and the people that don't survive. The one common denominator of all the survivors is that they work on their inner selves. How many Holocaust victims committed suicide? No one talks about it. How many people in the camps walked over to the gates and they just electrocuted themselves? They didn't want to deal with it. A lot. How many people that are going to walk out of what happened after October 7th that are going to have survivor's guilt and not know how to deal with themselves? What's the difference between the people that grow and thrive from the situation versus those that don't? And I don't know, I'm going to suggest, I have a suspicion, that it has something to do with the fact that one recognizes that I'm not in control of anything. And now that I'm here, I have a responsibility to do something back for humanity. Because at the core, to live means to love. What does the word love mean? The word in Hebrew for love is? What is the word ahava, the shoresh? Hav. What does hav mean? To give. So, which means that the more I give, the more I love. Who loves you more than anyone else in the world? Hashem. Who's the second person who loves you more than anyone else in the world? Who? Your rabbi? I wish I could say that's true. I do love you all very deeply, right? But I'd have to imagine your mommy loves you more than I do, right? The reason why she loves you more than anyone else in the world is because she has given to you more than anyone else in the world. Hashem loves you infinitely because He's giving you every single second more than anything in the world. Who's in control of that relationship between child and parent? The child's in control of that relationship. Why? Because the child could walk away at any point. The mom's not going anywhere. The love is unconditional. With your relation with Borei Olam, with God, who's in control of the relationship? You or Hashem. Hashem's the creator of the world. Who's in control? You're in control. Because you could walk away at any point. You could choose to ignore God. God's not ignoring you. You're breathing. Your heart is pumping. Your lungs are moving. The cells in your body are working. You're alive because He's thinking about you. He loves you. And it's hard to think about that. Well, why is it so difficult? Why do I have to go through things I'm going through? I'm telling you, it's because that's exactly what you need. But once you're able to let go and let God, you become the vessel that is able to receive all that other stuff. Instead of letting the junk clog you up. Turn to number 11. Anchoring love through prayer. Practical exercise. Exercise number 1. This is how you feel God's love. Recall a moment in your past when you felt deeply loved by anyone at any time. I want you to focus on that feeling of love and turn up the intensity as if amplifying it to its highest level. Once you have fully connected that feeling, recite the blessing before Kriyat Shema. Right? V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. Stop. The word Shema, right, is Shin Mem Ayin. Internalizing it. You're internalizing what? The word Shema means not just to listen, it also means to collect. V'yishama Shaul et ha'am. And Shaul gathered the people. Shmi'ah is the art of collecting. Okay? What are you collecting? Your thoughts. Collecting your heart, your emotions. You want to feel et Shema v'ahavta? Well, what are you doing to evoke the emotion? Saying the words does not produce the emotion. Not yet. But with time, when you're able to kind of conjure up that feeling, and you're able to anchor, associate it, entangle the word with the emotion, every time you say the word, powerful. I guarantee I never met any of your great-grandparents. Certainly your great-grandparents I didn't meet, right? But I promise you, if you told them that they could get on a plane and be in Israel in 12 hours, they would take everything they have and sell it and go. And when they got to Israel, when they landed in Israel at the airport, right? I remember back in the old days, we actually landed and you had those the steps coming out of the tarmac, and you landed on the asphalt and everyone got down and kissed the land, right? They would be sobbing and crying, kissing the land of Israel. Where did that emotion come from? Do you feel that way every time you go to Israel? When I get to Israel, the first thing I think about is, how am I going to get to Jerusalem to get my shawarma? I'm thinking about, how am I going to figure out a way of beating the traffic and getting to where I got to go to faster? How am I going to check into it? I'm not thinking anymore about the place that I'm visiting. I'm not thinking about the space and the symbolism, the meaning behind it. One of my favorite things I used to do with groups, I used to take lots of birthright groups back in the day to Israel. I've taken about 50 birthright groups to Israel, and so I found, very early on that, and to my surprise, that so many people had struggled with feeling anything at the Kotel. It's just a wall, Rabbi. Like, what am I supposed to feel? So what I used to do was, when you cross Kvish Echad, right outside of Mamilla, there's that love thing that, like, by the steps, right? You first see the wall. So I'd take my groups there. It's like there was an area with the stairs, and I'd do like a whole entire thing there, talking a little about the area and so on and so forth. And then I speak about the idea that every single stone that you're walking on is covered in Jewish blood. And if you're here today, your ancestors' blood is somewhere on one of these stones somewhere. But more than that, our ancestors prayed for 2,000 years for each one of their descendants to have the ability to walk through the streets of Jerusalem. And here we are, actualizing their dream. Your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers were crying on Friday nights, making their Hadlik Ner Shel Shabbat, covering their eyes, and they were thinking about their children and their grandchildren, creating a conscious awareness, a knowledge, a wisdom of, a drive, a desire to. You have the ability to fulfill their mission. Can you think about that for a minute? How powerful is that? We're living in a world, even though it's expensive now, and hopefully the price will come down soon, we'll be able to get on a plane, right, and fly back to Israel, right? Whenever you want. But it's superficial. They created a reality for you to be able to do that, and you don't appreciate it. You don't even think about the fact that your ability came from them. You're ungrateful. And the way for you to become grateful is that when you stand at that wall, you don't see a wall, you see a window of opportunity, you see a window of hope, that their dreams became a reality. And when you're standing there, I'm confident that every single time when I go to the Kotel, I know, I feel it. I make myself feel that emotion, that when I'm standing there, I know that when my hand is on the wall, every single one of my ancestors have their hands on my shoulder and they're cheering me on. That's the only reason why I could be there. That's the reason why you're here. You're here to do something. Okay, but if you're not working on making the feeling real, you're losing out on the most beautiful experiences of life. It's dull, and it could be beautiful. You could be living life, and you could be living life. You choose what kind of life you want to live. So you have to anchor your emotions. Number 2, channel love into Shema. Okay, think of a moment where you felt overwhelming love for a child, a spouse, grandparent, pet, or anyone else. If that's difficult to imagine or recreating a feeling as best as you can, hold on to that love and then elevate it, directing it towards God, and you say Shema. Okay, same idea. With consistent practice, emotional connection, you become automatic, enriching the daily recitation of the Shema with deep and personal meaning. Okay, you have to work on building your tefillah. The word tefillah comes from pilel, which means to develop the inner self, recognizing that you're judging yourself and growing something more. Right, Shlomo Riskin once shared a thought-provoking question. He said, if you were stranded on a deserted island and could only take 2 books, what should they be? You know, he said the Sidur, right, and Shulchan Aruch. Why? Because one is about having connection to God, and the other is a book that helps you refine the self so you could actually materialize and have that connection to the the ultimate creator. I want to move a little bit faster here. I want to just close these ideas together. You should definitely go through this number 15 on your own, number 16 on your own, all that is all good. That's all there for you. Look at number 18 for a minute. Let's look at number 17, sorry. Rabbi Avram Kook. This is what he says. He says, our soul is constantly praying, 24/7. When we step into prayer, we are stepping into the highest part of ourselves. When you're standing in tefillah, that is the ability to express the deepest, most truest parts of who you are. And we're not aware of it. The Zohar says, man is a olam katan. This means that each individual contains the elements of the entire universe within them. God said, let us make man, whom? Malachim. What was going on over there? Atzilut, nearness to God, Bria, creation, Tzira, formation. All of this is happening because that's all within you. You have the power of impacting reality, impacting your universe. Man was created through the contributions of all these realms, making him the interconnected cosmic entity. Within each man exists a portion of God on high. That is what you are. You are a mikdash ma'at. In this week's parasha, we say, Asuli mikdash v'shechanti betocham. Create a sanctuary for me and I will dwell in them. Who is the them? That's you. That's the vessel that you and I are supposed to create. A vessel where each one of us can contain an infinite spirit, an infinite mind, an infinite, all that, infinite, so that this infinite being can give you everything that you want and need. But it only comes through the refinement of the self, a self that is aware that the whole purpose of life is not to take but to give. You think it's about asking so I can receive, when in reality it's about asking so that you can give. It's a whole other reality. Okay, let's close. Manifesting is probably one of the most difficult things in the world for anyone to accomplish. But it's also simple. It requires one consistent thought, ratzon. Right? The pasuk says that if you open up your heart with the size of the eye of a needle, I will open up Sharei Shamayim. I'll open up the gates of heaven for you. The one key to any ability in life is ratzon. There has to be a will. There has to be a want. If you don't want to grow, that's your prerogative. You want to remain the same, that's your prerogative. You don't want things to change, your prerogative. I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't want to live in a world where Jews are being bullied. I don't want to live in a world where 2 beautiful Jewish babies were strangled to death. It's unacceptable to me. That's not a world that I want. I can't explain why all of the challenges happen to us in this world. I can't explain it. I don't know why. I could try to make sense of it. I know that, I'll tell you what I do know. I'll tell you that on October 6th, Israel was on the brink of civil war. I could tell you that on October 6th, there was tremendous amount of infighting with Jews. I could tell you that on October 6th, we lost our way as a people. We stopped recognizing the responsibility we have to each other. And maybe the horrors that we just experienced over the last 500 days was an expression of our inability to think about how we're interconnected. Maybe it comes from a world where we're all thinking selfishly about the things that I want for myself and not thinking more broadly about what can I do for the world around me. I want to manifest the world where I know my children won't have to worry about wearing a kippah crossing the street. I want to live in a world where I don't have to worry about my grandkids, God forbid, being abducted by some psycho lunatic. But I also know that wanting something is great, but what am I doing about it? What can I do about it? Should I start writing articles? Should I start making news appearances? Is that going to help? That's not who I am. That's not me. But you know what I can do? I can choose how I'm going to pray upstairs in the synagogue. I can choose how I'm going to respond to my family. I can choose how I'm going to respond to my wife. I can choose how I'm going to respond to my parents. Those are my choices. And the more and more I spend time leaning into the best versions of me doing that, I'm telling you, my friends, Hashem will give you what you want. He's waiting to give you what you want. But the cost on your part is not to allow status quo to be status quo. We should be bothered by what we saw over the last 500 years. If you haven't changed in 500 days, you have to ask yourself why. Something you're blocked. We said earlier that every single generation represents a different part of Adam's body. The Shlach HaKadosh says, and I'll end with this, that the end of time are the bottom of Adam HaRishon's feet. And he says something fascinating. He says that the bottom of someone's feet represent two different types of midot. One is the midah of laughter. The bottom of your feet, a little feather, ooh, very ticklish. Just even thinking about it makes you kind of like queasy, right? But I could take small pins and I could prick the dead skin on the bottom of your feet. Will you feel pain? The answer is no. This is what the Shlach says. He says that the generation before Mashiach will be very quick to laugh and very slow to react to pain. If you would rather spend time frivolously wasting your time because you want to laugh and you don't want to spend any time, and remember, I said earlier, you can't grow without simcha. You can't develop without happiness. But you also have to create a space where you could take the pain and channel it and turn it into something good. My bracha to each of us that we live in a world of shalom, we live in a world of peace, we live in a world of true simcha, and we allow ourselves to channel those challenging parts of our lives into something so profound that we can truly live in a world of Mashiach b'meher b'yameinu. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Questions, comments?